Hi, Eddie.
Hey Lydia, how are you doing?
Good, good. We'll get started shortly. Should be
Okay.
quick. We'll just give it a couple minutes. I know we're live and recording now, so I have the opening statement. I'm going to text my colleagues just to let them know. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm City Councilor Lydia Edwards, Chair of the Committee on Government Operations. It's Monday, May 17, 2021, and we're here today for a virtual working session on docket 0605, order for an amendment to the Boston City Charter pursuant to GLC 43B, Section 10. I sponsored this matter. It was referred to the committee on April 28, 2021. In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including requirement that public bodies conduct this meeting in public place, we are having this working session via Zoom. This allows us to do our jobs, but also balance the public safety needs of the moment. The public may watch this working session via live stream at www.boston.gov/city-council-tv and on Xfinity 8, RCN 82, Verizon 964. It will also be rebroadcasted at a later date. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.go@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all city councilors. This proposed charter amendment provides that the city council and the mayor hold budgetary powers together. The proposal allows for the city council to respond to public feedback with actions other than simply rejecting the budget. The proposal will require the city to establish by ordinance an independent office of participatory budgeting with an external oversight board, thereby creating a participatory budgeting process within the city's appropriation orders. The proposal also allows the city council to have more oversight over the budget for Boston Public Schools. The proposal preserves the primary function of the mayor to originate the budget and the requirement that the city council act in a timely manner. So to my colleagues, just a quick explanation of why we're doing this again. We did vote for this budget amendment last year, and pursuant to that, it was then sent over to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office then went through the language, and this is very normal. In 4 weeks, they go through and look at the constitutionality, clarity, any confusion, and that's essentially what the Attorney General came back with some suggestions, noting that there may be confusion. It could be interpreted in a certain way, and also that specifically around the language around participatory budgeting could be seen as almost a special allocation, which unless it's enumerated under certain state laws, it's not allowed. So essentially we went back and made sure that the language was as clear as possible. We didn't want any confusion. And I'll walk you through line by line where the language changes were happening. And we also made sure not to be as specific with regards to the participatory budgeting. Prior version of this that we voted on literally said it was 0.5% of the budget that had to be set aside and so on and so forth. And that looked like a special allocation. So we removed that language and we're pushing forward the office and ultimately saying that the participatory budgeting must be consistent with state law. So that is basically the crux of any amendments. They are actually pretty small. And I'm happy to go ahead and go through that language right now, unless anybody has any opening remarks. I just would like to tell you what the specific changes are. So I am joined by my colleagues, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Sabi George, and Councillor Bach. Are there any other councillors that I have missed? Okay. So of the councillors that are here, did any of you want to make any brief remarks? Okay, so all of you should have a version of the amended language, if you will. And I'm just going to pull it up real quick. And I will highlight for you where the versions of the language have changed. So it reads as follows. Order of Councilor Lydia Edwards that under the provisions of 43B of the Massachusetts General Laws, including sections 10 and 19 of said chapter, Article 89 of the Massachusetts Constitution, and any other applicable provision of law, Councilor Lydia Edwards proposes by written request to the clerk of the City of Boston the following amendment to the budgetary authorities outlined in, and this is where we have made a change, this language, Acts of 1909, Chapter 486, Section 3, amended by Acts of 1974, Chapter 274, Section 53, amended by Acts of 1982, Chapter 190, Section 15, and further amended by Acts of 1986 or 1986, Chapter 701, Section 2. That language that I just said. Going back to what we already voted on, Section 48 of the Boston City Charter, which would amend the existing text of said section and submit such amendment for approval by the voters of the City of Boston. Creation of approval of the municipal budget. The mayor and city council of the City of Boston shall hold, this is the change, powers together. It had initially equal powers. We thought it was better to have powers together. Back to the original language, with the power to modify in whole or in part an appropriation order or an item within an appropriation order, amend the budget for Boston Public Schools consistent with, this is the, again, clarifying language, Acts of 1936, Chapter 224, Section 2, amended by Acts of 1986, Chapter 701, Section 5, and further amended by Acts of 1987, Chapter 613, Section 2. Again, it was Section 75, but we made it very clear. Back to the original language of this charter, clarify budgetary procedures that take such other actions as are necessary to amend, approve, or disapprove the annual budget of the city, accepting the powers to originate an appropriation order, which shall be reserved for the mayor. Amended language. To further public engagement and democratic involvement in city spending, this is going back to the original language, the City of Boston shall create by city ordinance an independent office of participatory budgeting with an external or oversight board to create and oversee an equitable and binding decision-making process open to all Boston residents by fiscal year 2024, consistent with, and this is the new language, consistent with GLC or General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53. That replaced the language that specifically went down to the percentage of money that was going to be separated from the general fund. The amendment goes on as the mayor, not later than the second Wednesday in April of each year, shall submit to the city council the annual budget of the current expenses of the city and county for the forthcoming fiscal year, and the mayor may submit thereafter such supplementary appropriation orders as they may deem necessary. Not later than the second Wednesday in June, the city council shall take definite action on the annual budget by adopting, amending, or rejecting it, provided that the amended version shall not be for a higher total budget than originally proposed. In the event of their failure to act on a budget submitted by the mayor, the items in the appropriations orders in the budget as recommended by the mayor shall be in effect as if formally adopted by the city council and approved by the mayor. The mayor shall have 7 days from the time of the budgetary vote of the council to approve or return said budget to the council. And in the event of the failure of the mayor to act on a budget approved by the council, the budget shall be in effect as approved by the council. The mayor may modify a budget approved by the council by returning it to said council with amendments to any line item, provided that a vote of 2/3 of the council shall be sufficient to override any budgetary amendments in whole or in part, or an overall budgetary veto by the mayor. Shall be the duty of the city and county officials, when requested by the mayor, to submit to the mayor forthwith such detail as the mayor may require estimates for the next fiscal year of the expenditures of the department or office under their charge, which estimates shall be transmitted to the city council, provided, however, that the mayor shall neither submit nor thereafter reduce the appropriations for the city council at or to a level below that which has existed for the previous fiscal year. Nor shall the city council reduce the appropriations of the mayor's office below that which existed for the previous fiscal year. That is it. So I highlighted to you the very slight differences in language, really clarifying parts of the general laws that we were discussing and making sure to take out any specificity about budget allocations and just putting in a democratic process shall be part of our budgetary process going forward, but it will be consistent with the general laws. That's the difference. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any concerns? Councillor Flynn? Councillor Mejia?
Yes, good afternoon, Councillor Edwards. Really excited about this for many reasons. You know, we've been out in these streets doing budget pop-ups to really help people understand what's going on with their dollars. And so this is so encouraging. I do just have a few questions that I'd like to enter into the record, if you will, and just so that we can explore. So one of the questions is in terms of understanding the meaning of a particular sentence. The document says that if the council fails to act on a budget, the budget as recommended by the mayor shall be in effect as formally adopted by the city council and approved by the mayor. Does this mean that if the council doesn't pass the budget, it will go into effect anyways? Or is this only if the council doesn't vote on the budget at all?
Yeah, essentially it's forcing us to make a decision. You're going to do something, but we're not going to wait indefinitely.
Okay, great. And then a question in the last sentence of the amendment, it basically says that the council can't try to reduce the budget of the mayor's office, and the mayor's office can't reduce the council's budget. But to be clear, could the mayor's office, for whatever reason, reduce their own budget?
Technically, yes, they could recommend for themselves what they would like.
Okay. And this question is more about the process. How can we use this space to rethink how the administration shows up in the budget conversations? For example, in a lot of our budget conversations, the administration doesn't fully explain how they use their dollars. Instead, they explain why they deserve their funding. So is there an opportunity within this amendment to just kind of be really clear about the process? You know, I'm just curious about what that looks like. Like if
passed, I think it does change their conversation, Councilor Mejia. I think we're going to end up with not only an explanation of like they're down to dollars a little bit more, but also what dollars are committed through a union contract and which dollars are not, and which ones we can move or not move, and where we really break down, I think, within even departments, concerns about whether, I don't know, the best team is getting enough money within the BPD or so on and so forth. But I think that they show up, I think they will be forced to show up differently because our questions are going to be different because we have line item conversations that we didn't before.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's pretty much basically what I'm just thinking about. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Sabi George.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councilor Mejia, for bringing up that question. I am curious, though. A lot of the spending is spelled out in the budget books, especially as it relates to full-time FTEs. So thinking about positions, and then it's further broken down. So I think requesting, and all of that is available at the start of the budget process as well in each meeting. So I guess I'm curious in what the difference is that Councilor Mejia is asking for through that budget process. Like what looks different? Is it a different presentation? Or I'm curious what the request is.
Well, I think the question is, how does this change the conversation and the process overall? And you are correct, Councilor Sabi George, a lot of that information is presented in the budget books. I do think, however, when we're dealing with this new process where we get into it more and we're down to the vote and we're arguing on the floor and doing what we need to do, I think that I would think, and this is, again, I'm predicting, one, it's not my administration. Two, I have no idea how they're really want to present, but I think you're going to find more of a genuine back and forth for certain dollars or prioritization from the department saying, actually, you know what, that money might be a little bit more flexible here, but this one we absolutely need because we need an FTE, so on and so forth. I think it's just going to be different, not confrontational, not confrontational, just different.
What I worry about, and I had expressed this when I voted in favor of this last year, is I'm really excited about the participatory budget process. I think that that's fantastic. This added piece where we are negotiating to some degree, negotiating where certain dollars are spent, that we are as colleagues going to be pitting each other against each other in certain efforts that we're looking to invest further in. So if I'm looking to invest further in mental health clinicians, and someone else is looking to invest further in traffic enforcement, and somebody else is looking to increase further in BCYF lifeguards. Like, so there's these competing interests that are all great things for the city, but I worry sometimes then the wheeling and dealing starts, which is fine, but then all of a sudden, well, we're only giving a little bit to mental health and then a little bit to lifeguards, then a little, because there is that finite amount of money in the budget. And then there's a very real dynamic of different advocacy groups, and some are much stronger than others, and that the louder voices often get heard the most because there's advocacy around investing in, say, the housing voucher program, which we hear a great deal from Michael Kane and his group. They're very much activated and engaged, rightfully so. But then we don't hear as much from some groups that are maybe a little bit more disenfranchised. So balancing those needs, I think, becomes a real risk, both literally when we think about where we're investing our funds, and philosophically, that those that are most heard are the ones that are most responded to. So just want to put that on the table. That's a real concern of mine when we think about some of the infighting and outfighting that happens during the budget process. And this will certainly be available for public consumption, which is fine. We should be doing this work out in the open, but I do worry about the conflict that can create between the advocates, between us as a body and the advocates, and maybe some of the advocates that aren't as easily heard.
I can't think of a more conflicting and more confrontational back and forth than what we had in 2020. And that was without this process, right? And people literally came to our homes. So I don't know of anything more tensions than that.
Right. So
and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying
right. No, I think that's a great example
right now is not helping either.
Right.
So what this is doing is it would actually require us to talk to each other more. It would actually require us to hear, like, well, let me justify to you why I think mental health should get that much more money, and actually helps with, I don't know, the lifeguards and so on and so forth. But it would be public, it would be out there for folks to see and explain our prioritizations to each other and to our constituencies. And you are correct. It is oftentimes, and one of the most frustrating things about people having a voice and having certain people's ears. I will say, to our credit, we passed, I think, some of the most comprehensive lobbying laws, right, to prevent those who, and to also require a certain amount of transparency of who walks into City Hall and has access to us as well. So I still think, and yes, you are being completely consistent with the concerns that you had before when you did vote for this. And I actually think this is going to be more transparent, more clear. And honestly, if people don't see us going back and forth, they'll probably be asking themselves, why am I paying you?
I think that's a great example you referenced from last year. And when we had that $12 million, for example, taken from the police overtime budget and then invested in these couple of other categories, I think that's a great example, because we were able to advocate for $2 million of that towards the mental health providers. But, $12 million is in the grand scheme of things, a very small dollar amount. And, I again, just, concerned about the conflict it creates with, I want $2 million for providers, but maybe we want $2 million for, other investments that are also important. But again, as you say, we've got to just do a better job advocating for the pieces that, we are working towards and finding most important.
And communicating that with each other too. And I will say this to the public, I don't know that the current process really encourages the sit down back and forth. It'll be in public that we would, so so that's, but you're correct. It's going to change some process, some conversation. So Councillor Flynn, you just came on, or Councillor Sabi George, was that it? Okay. Councillor Flynn, did you have anything?
No, Councillor Edwards, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. And Councillor Bach.
Just to say, Councillor Edwards, I did read the documents in detail and I'm supporting the amendment. I'm in transit right now, so I won't do extensive comments, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so It is because we voted on this before, the concept, and we had the back and forth, and my goal was really to just present these edits that again were more specific and clarifying and consistent to the body, to hear any questions or edits that they may have, and then to present this for a vote on this Wednesday. So is that anything else, counselors? Okay.
Did you note that Counselor Arroyo has joined us?
No, I didn't see that. I'm so sorry, Counselor Arroyo. Counselor Arroyo,
Thank you,
I'm
Councilor.
so sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to raise my blue hand. I just wanted to say that I supported this in its original construct. I did read through, I think it was like 10 pages or so that the AG sent over sort of in depth. I read through all of that. I agree with the edits that you're taking here. I thank you for your leadership. And I would just say to answer to Councilor Sabi George's concerns, because I do believe that that is like a real aspect of this, is that we all have our own issues that we're going to be advocating for on top of having separate advocacy groups. I think the illusion that we're not already doing that, though, where we're not already having these conversations with the administration, whoever that administration is, lobbying on behalf of what our interests are or who we're pushing for. But the difference is it's not happening necessarily so transparently out front in a way that this would, I think, force, in a way that I think is great for government transparency, so that people see what people are actually pushing and advocating for. And then those counselors, whether it's myself or another counselor, have to then sort of explain their rationale the same way that they've been doing with, say, the chiefs of different departments that you're fighting for funding for, or with the mayor that you're fighting for funding for. So I think this is something that actually sort of democratizes, in a way, that process where it becomes public, sort of where people are and what they're pushing for. And I understand that that could be sort of a tension building, but I don't think that this current process isn't without its tension, where we have people who, you know, including myself at times, who are publicly lobbying either in the press or at a hearing or in whatever way we're doing it. We're still already doing that. We're just doing it without the same mechanism for really getting things done. And so I look forward to doing this with some actual teeth. And so thank you, Councilor Edwards, for your, Madam Chair, in this hearing, for your leadership on this.
Thank you, and thank you all for participating today, and again, continuing the conversation. I think we all are excited about, at least whether you agree or disagree with everything, that this could be a game changer in how we present charter changes to Boston. So this is going to go, you know, presuming that this is fine with the language, it's going to go to Bostonians, and it'll be on the ballot. It would be in November, and then they can ultimately make the decision about these power dynamics as well. And I think, thank you again, Councilor Sabi George, for bringing up the implications of some of those power dynamics, so people can make a more informed decision if this is what they want, if they agree or disagree with it. But I'm just happy. I think we're more democratic by even just giving people the option. So thank you so much. With no further questions, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this working session. So thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, bye.
Thanks.
The record.
Thank you.
I know, that was quick.